live, laugh.
How's it going, everybody? This is Daniel. I am joined by Oliver Sawyer. Oh, let me switch these around. There we go. How you doing, Oliver?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing all right.
Good, awesome. So, we do this thing at the end of our podcast where we ask people who people should know about as far as wrestling goes, and you're one of the names that comes up pretty consistently. You are starting to get some really good traction in the East Coast, and you are kind of a little bit of everywhere. So, I guess before we start, where can everybody find you, and are there any shows upcoming that you want people to check out?
I mean, all the Firestar shows in Greensboro. I'm Southeastern champ there. AML, DPW, big in North Carolina. I'm usually on those shows.
Okay.
That's pretty much the main stuff for now.
Okay, cool. All right, so we'll just hop right in. Usually we like to begin at the beginning, which for wrestling, where does that start for you? When is the first time that you see wrestling, and where is the moment that you kind of got hooked?
I'm not gonna lie, this is a little embarrassing. Because whenever I tell this story, people look at me funny. I was not watching when I was like a young child. Didn't get into it because of a family member or friend or any of that. I got into it because I used to like a show called Arrow.
Oh yeah,
And Stephen Amell did the match at SummerSlam, the tag match with Neville against Barrett and Stardust. And
yeah.
I saw that and I was like, And so I think I was in, well, it was SummerSlam. So I think I was about to go into 8th grade.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch it for a few months after that. And then I kind of, in the middle of 8th grade, started watching and hooked ever since.
What was it about it that kind of drew you in?
That's a good question because based on what I started with, I really couldn't have told you why that was so intriguing to me. But as I sort of learned more about it, especially like the Japanese style of wrestling, that's what really drew me in and got me more invested in learning about it. But I think just the overall, like not just the in-ring stuff, but just learning more about the business as a whole was really interesting to me.
Did you have any history with like any other combat sports that kind of going into it, or?
I wrestled in high school.
Okay, so you have
for 3 years.
Okay, nice. So you have a little bit of familiarity with like wrestling as a concept, so it probably helped a little bit with the transition.
Yeah.
Who are some of those guys like when you first started watching that really drew you in?
My first favorite wrestler was Seth Rollins. And then, like I said, I started watching more Japanese wrestling, and so I was really leaned towards Kenny Omega.
Okay.
But then like all the Japanese guys, Ibushi, Naito, Tanahashi, all those guys that are current, like were sort of very active while I started getting into it. I was big into all those guys.
Awesome. But then take a step back. As far as the Arrow goes, did you watch it all the way through?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the later seasons?
Well, it was good for a while.
Yeah. My wife and I just restarted it. I watched it like kind of towards the first.
Uh-huh.
And then it just kind of gets to a certain point where I think that's a lot of CW shows. They just kind of get repetitive. But yeah, that's definitely something we've never heard. The Arrow is that's still pretty cool. Did you catch what he did at All Out at all? Was that a cool moment for you too?
Yeah, when he wrestled Christopher Daniels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was dope.
Because I imagine you're pretty entranced in wrestling at that point. So
yeah, no, so that was that was in 2018.
Yeah.
I started training a year later, essentially.
Okay.
It was September 2019 was the first time I started. So
awesome. Speaking of training, you kind of mentioned Seth Rollins, and I know you've got on your profile Brave and the Bold. Is that correct how you say it?
Brave.
Yeah, the Black and the Brave. Yep. Talk us through what moment led you to want to become a wrestler and take this seriously, and why did you choose that school as your starting point?
Well, it wasn't actually my starting point. My starting point was Firestar in Greensboro. And then once I graduated from there and had got a few matches under my belt, I went up to Black and Brave.
Okay.
But I don't know. There was just a certain point in high school where everyone's sort of figuring out what they're going to do after high school, and I just
Yeah.
couldn't think of anything else I wanted to do. And the only thing I really liked was wrestling. So at a certain point, I was just like, well, I guess that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So how do you find Firestar? What's that first day like going into school?
It was interesting. Because I was 16 at the time, so I had to have my parents like sign the waivers and stuff. And so my mom drove me, and she pulled up to the building they were at the time in Greensboro. And she was like, I don't think this is it because it's not in the nicest neighborhood and it's not what I guess she expected from a wrestling school. But I was like, no, this looks about right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that first day, I think Kozone, the first days are a little harder now.
Yeah.
Because I think that day was the day after Wrestle Revival that year, and I think he had jacked up his back pretty good on the night before, so he was kind of keeping it low key that day.
Yeah. Had you heard of him before going to school?
Nope, I didn't know anything about Firestar or really anything about the local independent wrestling scene.
Yeah.
I just looked up wrestling schools in North Carolina, and that was the top one.
Nice. So you kind of lucked out because there's a lot of places you could have gone where you probably yeah. So,
we don't have to name names.
But. Yeah. So you're starting to trade with Kozone.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you kind of start to decide what you want to be? Because I'm sure the first part of the journey is just like figuring out the basics, running the ropes. What point do you start to decide that you want to be the pure dragon Oliver Sawyer?
Well, again, because I was heavily influenced by Japanese wrestling, and so trying to come up with like a gimmick or whatever was always super hard for me. Still to this day is super hard for me. And so at first I was just like, well, I'm a wrestler, so I'll just be a wrestler. And Cozy, I forget what he called it, but he came up with the stupidest idea. I think he called it like the WrestleManiac. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. No, that was not good. And I'm very glad that I've never done anything underneath like the WrestleMania. That's terrible. But that idea was kind of just always in my head. Was I just kind of wanted to be a wrestler. I started with just plain black tights. For a while I had thought about like going or like having the wrestler as the nickname. I don't know, Katsuyori Shibata. He goes by the wrestler, and that was always something I enjoyed. So I thought about that for a while, but it was just finding stuff that I could kind of borrow from and change, and eventually I settled on the Pure Dragon.
Nice. To take it back a little bit, as somebody who like, I can only imagine like when you have this like obsession with wrestling, what was that moment like when you like first stepped in the ring?
It was pretty sweet. It was again, it was like it was a long day of like just talking and Cozy asking us questions and all that, but then he makes it a really big deal the first time everyone steps through the ring and is able to like sort of live out that moment that they've been thinking about for so long. So it was pretty surreal.
Awesome. Yeah, it's cool to know that he does that because like when I've thought about it and through our conversations, like we're all like super big fans at heart, and this is like something that you may not think like always is an achievable goal. So like that stepping through the ring at the first part, it's got to be pretty surreal. How far into your training are you going before you have your first match?
Well, I kind of, on the one hand, I lucked out, and on the other hand, it was bad luck because right when I trained for a few months, and then I went and finished my senior season in amateur wrestling, and then I came back and kind of hit it as hard as I could. And right when I got back, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And so I think Cozy shut the school down for a few weeks. But then once he started running private training and classes again, I was there 3 or 4 times a week as often as I could. And then the first show that he ran back after COVID, was my debut. So I think it was July 2020 was my first match. So whatever the math is, they're like 10 months.
Who was that against?
Him. It was against Cozy.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. Yeah,
Sometimes.
I've heard people that have had pretty bad opponents or.
Yeah, no, I was definitely lucky to get Cozy, but he didn't make me feel lucky that night.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, it looks like he definitely lays it in on any guys he's in the ring with.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Was that on Federal Drive or was that at a different
That was
venue?
Medley Street.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with that one, but I know, is this setup the same where you still got like that circle entrance?
It wasn't quite as fancy as it is now, but yeah, it's the same idea.
So what is it like? Because that's kind of like old school WCW walking through a tunnel. Like, what is it like when you make your debut and you walk through the crowd?
Man, that whole day I was super nervous because one thing about amateur wrestling is that I loved the sport and I loved like learning it and practicing it, but when it came to competing, I was always like nervous. And even as I got better and I was able to win and compete better, that nervousness never went away. And so that day, all I could think about was what if it's the same with pro wrestling?
Mm.
And I didn't really have much else to think about because Cozy was off doing whatever he does on show days. So I was kind of just sitting there worrying about this match. And as soon as the music hit, it like all went away. And it's like the craziest feeling because it was like up until the second that my music hit, I was like nervous and sweating and I was so scared. And then the music hit and I was game on, completely in the zone. And it's like that every time.
Were you playing heel at that point?
Well, Cozy wanted to tell a story of him sort of teaching me a lesson.
Okay.
Clearly, he didn't do a very good job of that, but he beat some respect into me that night.
Yeah. So, like, something I've heard is like hearing the crowd's reaction to like something you're doing in the ring is something like, it's almost like you're controlling the crowd with your motions. What was it like actually stepping in the ring and as you're like doing something that's causing these people to react? How did that feel?
I didn't feel it for a long time because I was just trying to figure out what I was actually doing. And so the noise I couldn't hear it or even think about it. But as I've sort of learned and gotten better at that, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's awesome.
There's been a couple matches in particular where I really felt like I was like just in complete control. One of them was against Bobby Wasabi. Do you know who that is?
Yeah,
yeah. He I had to wrestle him, but before that I wrestled in Nightdale, like an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Greensboro. And I had to drive all the way to Greensboro, and I didn't even know if I was going to make it in time. I thought someone else was going to have to wrestle Bobby, but I get there, I think literally like 3 minutes before my music hit. And so there was no type of communication or talking. It was just, I'm here, let's go.
Yeah.
And so that night in particular, I was out there and I was getting time cues from the ref, but it was just whatever happens in these 10 minutes is what's going to happen. There's no changing it or adding on to it. It's just, this is what it is tonight. And so that was a good opportunity for me to really get comfortable with just going based on what the people are giving me.
Feeling the crowd and kind of going through that. Yeah, that's got to be pretty cool, especially like I'm sure that you feel like you're kind of like preparation seems like it's important to you, and then you kind of go out there and prove that like, hey, I don't need, like, it'd be nice to have preparation, but I don't need it to necessarily go out there and get the job done. That's gotta be pretty cool. So how far into training are you at this point when you have that match?
With Kozone or
just in general, I guess.
I debuted in July 2020, so that was 10 months after I started training.
Okay. And at what point do you start working outside of Firestar?
My first match outside of Firestar was October 2020. It was actually my birthday. So.
Okay, nice. So you mentioned was that American Lucha Wrestling?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you're going. What is it like your first time like out on not necessarily the road, but like at a different promotion where you don't necessarily know everybody and you're kind of in a locker room with without your classmates at Cozy?
Um, it was nerve-wracking, obviously, at first, but I think like Jack Malachi and sort of a lot of those guys were there because it was in American Lucha was in Burlington at the time, so it was pretty close to Greensboro.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a little scary, and then you get to see sort of what wrestling looks like outside of Firestar, and
Yeah.
it's pretty, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I guess that's something I never thought of. How different is like your average, like we'll put like the AMLs and the DPWs aside, the Firestars.
Right.
How big of an adjustment is that for you going from Firestar to like an American Lucha?
Um, Not necessarily American Lucha specifically, but
Yeah.
yeah, the overall scene outside of like the major players, it's different. And I try to tell a lot of the guys training now that they don't understand how well they have it at Firestar.
Mhm.
And yeah, once they start those first few matches outside of Firestar, they learn very quickly that it's not always as easy as it can be at Firestar.
Do you feel like you have to like have a chip on your shoulder going out there because obviously like Firestar, like you give these opportunities and you're like different places on the card, and then you have to go out and they're like, who's this new kid? You kind of have to go out. Is there like an extra effort in those situations to kind of show out?
Um, it depends, honestly. Like sometimes depends on the town and the promotion because I used to try to wrestle the same at every show in every town I was in, and I learned very quickly. Not every town I'm in do the fans like Japanese wrestling. Not
Yeah,
every town likes, the stuff that I like. So I had to learn how to adjust to kind of giving them what they want, not necessarily what I want all the time,
yeah,
which
awesome.
is, they should learn to like better wrestling.
Yeah,
But it is what it is.
yeah. I've been to some of those shows, and it's like this. I get it. It's old school. It's like it's what they grew up on, but it's almost like, come on, guys. Like you can have so much more. Like somebody being like happy with like a very slow car when there's like a
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, sometimes it's a good thing because it
Yeah,
means I don't have to do very much, but
yeah,
sometimes I'd like go to a building wanting to, have fun and it's like, "Oh, well, we can work a headlock for a few minutes."
yeah. Um, at what moment did you like first feel like you belonged to the ring?
Mm. I mean, that debut against Kozone, even though I was not necessarily ready or
Yeah.
in control or any of that, it felt like I was.
Uh,
At the time. So I mean, pretty early on, I felt that way, and then I think the more experience I've gotten, the more I learned that like I'm never actually gonna be ready or
yeah,
in control as much as I think I am because I feel like no matter how far along I get, I'm always just gonna continue to learn and do things differently.
for sure. And I was kind of like looking through your you've had some like cool opportunities, some like big matches, but like looking back, it seems like something that stands out. And we don't have to talk about the person because the
Mhm.
person kind of come out. But what is it like with your match with Davey Richards? Like the opportunity to like go toe to toe with somebody who's like so technical, um, personal stuff aside, like the trust that the Cozy put on you to have that match. When did you find out, and what was it like leading up to it?
Um, I found out of like that November. It was January. I think me and Cozy started talking about it in November. And yeah, I don't think it wasn't until it got kind of closer to the date that I was like, "Oh, this is like a big deal."
Yeah,
Like I was getting ready for it. Well, I thought I was, and I was trying to prepare as much as I could, and I was studying everything he did, and I was like really trying to get ready for it. But there's nothing that you can really do to get ready. But also, in situations like that, you don't really necessarily need to be ready, if that makes sense, because it's like he was by far the most professional person I've ever been in the ring with, easiest person to work with I've ever been in the ring with.
yeah,
And so even if I had gone in like it was just a regular Saturday, it would have been a breeze.
yeah. What is it like when you like? Does he walk through the match with you? Like, how does that process work?
Man, I was so nerve-wracking because, again, not necessarily understanding what was going through his head.
Yeah.
Because we had a seminar that day, and then I dropped him off at his hotel, and he was like, "What time does the show start?" And I said, 7. And he said, "Okay, cool. Pick me up at 7." And I was like, "What? Hold on now."
Yeah.
But, what am I gonna say? So I said,
Yeah.
"All right, yeah." And I pick him up at 7, and I'm, like, rushing to get back to the building. And I, like, put my bags down, I'm ready to talk, and then he just walks through the locker room and out to the crowd, and I'm like, "What are you doing? We have a match in, like, an hour and a half, and we gotta talk about this." And he just sat there, and I'm, like, looking at him, I'm like, "Yo, somebody's gotta talk to him, like, what is he
Yeah.
doing?" And then he comes to the back, and he's like, "Name a couple things you do," and, of course, I was ready, so I was like, "Boom, boom, boom, boom,"
Yeah.
and he's like, "Okay, let's do this. Hold on. No." And then he starts at the beginning, this. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, all right. And and then yeah, he just goes through it all. And I'm like, well, the first half of the match, he just didn't even talk about. Like he went from like we did a strike exchange like halfway through the match. And so he called it from the strike exchange on.
Uh,
And I was like, so what are we gonna do before that? And he said, just wrestle. And I said, oh, okay, cool. And like as I'm listening and trying to remember everything and get through everything, I was just like, okay, yeah, cool, everything's cool, whatever. And then we go out there and we do it, and it like that was maybe not the most nervous I've been, but it was pretty scary going out there, especially because he like once he zones in, he's in. Like he's no longer, Dr. Davey Richards. He is
yeah.
American Wolf,
Yeah.
ready to kill you, Davey Richards. And so like I go out and we start wrestling, and it's again super easy once it actually starts flowing.
Mhm.
Um, but then we get to the back, and he's like trying to explain to me why he did what he did, and he was like, "Yeah, when I watched the first match, and they're already trying to take big bumps and doing all that." He was like, "So there was no point in us trying to do it because it wouldn't get any type of reaction." And so that match in particular really was beneficial to me learning like that not necessarily less is more, but trying to get the most out of the least, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
really cool perspective. I never thought about that, but yeah, definitely cool
yeah.
to have that experience. How like how stiff is a Davy Richards compared to like a Kozone?
Man, not as stiff as you would think, because I remember like walking out of the match, everyone was like, "Oh my god, like how are you alive?" And at first, I couldn't even remember what happened because most of it, again, we just wrestled, and so I
Yeah.
wasn't even thinking about it. But then it was like slowly, I was like, oh yeah, that didn't feel great, but that didn't feel great. But then a lot of the stuff that they were like, oh yeah, that must have killed you. I was like, I don't even remember that happening, so I guess not.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, total professional. But yeah, I mean, he be hitting.
Yeah. So after that point, where do you go? Like, are you graduated? I guess is a good question by that point.
Yeah. I graduated from Firestar in August 2020, and then I graduated from Black and Brave April 2021. And
Okay.
that match, the Davey Richards match, happened January 2022.
Okay. So I guess we could take it back a little bit to Black and the Brave. Is that
Mm.
something where you're like, Seth Rollins is like my favorite wrestler. I have an opportunity to go and like learn from him. Of course.
Yeah, so um yes, like I said, Seth Rollins was my first favorite wrestler, and so excuse me. So I had always known about his school, and when the thoughts of being a wrestler first popped into my head, I was like, "Oh, this is cool, but that's not going to happen. Halfway across the country, super expensive, whatever." Um, and then I think, well, what I had initially wanted to do, because it seemed more realistic to me at the time, I wanted to go to the Nightmare Factory, and
Yeah.
they were like just starting up. Like I think they had done like one or two camps at that point, but I think it was like November 2020, and I was like trying to figure out how to get there because it's in Atlanta, like a few hours from me. So that what didn't seem that unrealistic.
Yeah.
And it was just again, they were just starting up, so their communication wasn't the best. And so I was trying to apply, and I wasn't getting like a call back, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, that's not going to happen. But I had all this money that I had saved planning on going. And then it was like early December. The Black and Brave Instagram posted that there was like a spot free in the January class. And I was like, well, this is perfect. I
Yeah.
have all this money that I've saved and I wanted to leave anyway to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I applied, got the email back, paid. And then I was gone like 3 weeks later.
How long was that class?
12 weeks.
Okay. So where were you living at the time? Like at a hotel?
Then they have a house, but I think because it was COVID, they were restricting the amount of people that were living there, and I joined super late. So I stayed at a like an extended stay hotel almost. Yeah, that has a whole bunch of crazy stories in itself, but
Yeah.
yes, that's where I was staying.
I've heard some. I've done. I used to work in food delivery. Anytime we had an extended stay delivery, it was an interesting, for sure.
Mhm.
So what is that like? You're out on your own, living in probably not the nicest of places, trading in Iowa, right? To Iowa.
Yeah, Davenport, Iowa.
What is that like? Just like completely going out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, it was. It honestly wasn't as like out of my comfort zone as I would have thought because I just turned 18 like 3 months earlier, so that was the first time I'd ever lived on my own, and it wasn't like I could just drive home, every weekend to see my
Yeah.
friends and family. I was on my own for 3 months in the middle of the winter in the Midwest, so it was, not always great, but it wasn't as bad as I thought. I was able to adapt pretty quickly, and then especially once classes really got going, I pretty much stayed at the school for most of the day, and then I would just go home and sleep essentially.
Yeah. How does the Black and the Brave differ from Firestar?
It's a much more like there's a much more like standard curriculum because at Firestar and like a lot of training schools, it's like, all right, we have training Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, right?
Mm.
Whoever's there, well, they learn something, right? And so if someone shows up one week and then they show later, they're behind everyone else.
Yeah.
That's not how it goes at Black and Brave. You're there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every week, like mandatory attendance, right? I think you can miss 2 classes before you have to leave the class or something.
Yeah.
And obviously most people are from far away, so that's everyone's primary priority.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just like, all right, today we're doing this, tomorrow we're doing this. If you don't pick up this today, I hope you figure it out by tomorrow because we're moving on.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I already had experience, so I was able to pick up like the moves and stuff pretty easily. Like most of that was the same as I had already learned. But if that had been my first time wrestling, I don't know if I would have made it because it's not easy.
Yeah. How involved is Seth Rollins in that process?
So I feel like I was in one of the classes where he was involved the least because again, middle of COVID,
Yeah.
he had just had a baby, I think a month earlier,
Mm.
right? But with that being said, he was still there, especially once we started with like the more advanced classes. He was there, he was giving feedback. Early on, it was a lot of Merrick Brave and the assistant coach Crotch.
Yeah.
Because Seth doesn't need to watch us take 50 suplexes because he has other people that are qualified to do that. But yeah, once we got into like doing practice matches and spots and stuff like that, even when he wasn't in town, he would be on a tablet on Zoom watching us.
Oh, nice. So. Did you have any shows at that point, or is it strictly just?
No, they were real serious about COVID.
Okay.
So it was pretty rough because I had started having matches and then 3 months, nope, no matches at all.
Nice. And I guess like you mentioned, you had already started wrestling, so it was a little bit easier. So what were the main takeaways that you were able to get from there? Like what new stuff were you looking to learn and how did that go?
A lot of it was kind of stuff that just would have taken me way longer to figure out, like stuff that I probably wouldn't have even figured out to this day. Just like a lot of intricacies, like Merrick Brave, he always talks about not giving them, not giving the fans a filet mignon when they want chicken nuggets,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of what I was talking about earlier with
Yeah.
trying to adapting to what people are
Of
actually
course.
there to see. And that's something that is like when I'm at shows now and I see people having matches, it's like, well, the fans don't care about what you're doing, so it doesn't matter. And so
Yeah.
again, that's something to this day I probably wouldn't even think about because I would just be having matches that were fun to me.
Yeah.
But that was like a super big takeaway. And then also just again, more of the intricate details of psychology and all that stuff.
Nice. Did you find that like once you finished that, like it was like another like do you think it elevated your status and helped you with bookings after that or
Not as much as you would think. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm coming back from Black and Brave. I'm about to be going everywhere." Some places were like, "Oh, that's cool," and then some places were like, "Who are you?"
yeah,
And so, yeah, I think if I had stayed in the Midwest, your stock rises exponentially because everyone in the Midwest knows that school.
yeah.
But yeah, then coming back to the East Coast, it was yeah, not as beneficial in that regard as I would have thought.
Gotcha. And just like a side note, what was it like meeting Seth Rollins? Like a guy that like you were so
I wish I could have done it differently because obviously I was a nervous wreck and
yeah,
super scared. I think because the first day, um, the first like few weeks of that school is like they want you to quit. They don't want you to be there. They're trying to get rid of as many people as they can. And so the first day is just like 3 hours of like super intense working out. Um, and so everyone's kind of getting their water and starting to go over to the like the workout area. And I was the first one over there, and I was just like, "Nice to meet you." And he just kind of looked at me, and I was like, "I understand. I'll just walk away." But then yeah, it's like at first I didn't like. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's Seth Rollins, cool. He's big superstar." But then it's just as it goes on, it's like, "Oh, I understand. They wanted people to quit. They wanted to see who was really going to be here and committed to this." Because yeah, it's like after like 2-3 weeks, everyone is just super cool, and it's like a big family there.
how many people dropped out over that first couple weeks?
I think we started with 13. I believe we finished with 8. One of them got a skin infection or something, and so he had to leave later on. But those other 4 or 5, they dropped out like first week.
Yeah, I've heard even with like Firestar, I've heard like I think I don't remember who exactly it was, but I think it was Manny. He was like, I think you and him were the only people in his class that like actually graduated.
Yeah, yeah. People don't know what they're getting into, and they learn very quickly.
Oh,
But I mean, it's for the better because
yeah,
not everyone's meant to be a wrestler.
yeah, 100% sure. Um, so to kind of jump forward a little bit, you're back, you're working Davey Richards, and then a little bit after that, you have your first opportunity in AEW Dark against Josh Woods and Tony Nese. Was it
Mhm.
kind of cool to face Josh Woods? He's definitely seems like he's up your alley as far as like the technical side of wrestling. And
Yeah, I had that was actually they aired it first, but that was my second match
okay,
there. Um, but yeah, I had met Josh Woods. It was at Firestar. It was a seminar. He wrestled Jackson Drake, and so I met him there, and I was a little bit involved in their match, so I had sort of talked to him a little bit.
uh,
I don't know if he remembered me, but he was cool, and yeah, that match. It was, a little short. We could have put up a better fight, I suppose. But yeah, it was fun. And he was super cool. Tony Nese actually was also super super cool
yeah, both super
because I
cool guys.
I think we had 4 minutes scheduled, and that's curtain to curtain. So that means including their entrance, 4 minutes.
Yeah,
So we kind of walk up to them, and they're like, "Sorry, this ain't gonna be a whole lot for you guys." And it's like, well, I don't care. I'm here,
yeah,
doing whatever I can. So who cares, right?
yeah,
But yeah, so it's cool that they were so like understanding of the fact that yeah, we were literally just going to get absolutely murdered.
Yeah. Was the match before that the Workhorseman?
Yeah, with Manny. And it was cool to sort of work with them first because I was familiar with them and I knew them because they're in the same scene as me.
Yeah. Did you get chopped by JD Drake?
Not that match. I spent the majority of that match on the apron. But then I worked them again with Malachi, and I suffered some injuries, some wounds that day.
Is it as bad? Is it as bad as everybody says?
I'm not gonna lie, the chop was what it was, but I chopped and I fell. And the second I sat up, I felt it. I saw out of the corner of my eye him moving, and I didn't know what it was. And I felt his boot just smack into my back, and that was way worse than the chop because I started crawling away because I didn't want none of that smoke. That was terrifying.
Awesome. What was it like? I guess leading up to AEW Dark. When do you find out that you're going to be on there?
Yeah. So we actually. Sean Dean, who books and like manages the extras, he did a seminar at Firestar for a company called Hit Club Pro.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was officially like a tryout or if it was just a seminar, but you're doing a seminar with the guy that books extras. So, wink, wink.
Yeah.
But we all kind of went in with the idea that somebody's going down to Florida, right?
Yeah.
And it was like a super simple seminar. It was just basic rolls, running the ropes, and then practice matches. And it was, again, one of the most terrifying things ever because I think I messed up a drop kick in the practice. And that was kind of like the one thing that he pointed out to me after the match. And I'm like, well, can't do a drop kick, so I guess I'm done.
Yeah.
And then after he sort of called out 4 names that were going to go down to AEW Dark, and it was me, Jack, Malachi, and Manny Lowe. And so, yeah, it was like super, super cool. And it was actually cooler for me to see Manny go down than it was for myself because Manny hadn't even graduated yet, I don't think. Yeah. And so he was like 3 or 4 months into like working matches and he was going to go down. So that was cooler than going down myself, was to see that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize. I knew that he was young, but I didn't realize he was that early into it. Question we always ask, like, how is the catering there?
It's pretty sweet. The first couple times, so I've been down to Florida for them 3 times, I believe. And the first 2 times, I couldn't really indulge because I had to wrestle on the second taping because they do catering in between the morning or the afternoon and the evening tapings. And so for the first 2 times I had to wrestle on the second taping, and so I didn't really get to enjoy it as much as I wanted to. But that third time, I went back a few extra servings, and it's pretty bomb. But better than the catering is the snack table. Because the catering's only there for those couple hours in between the sessions or the tapings. The snack table is there all day. And they had a man working that snack table, and I made him busy because I kept going back.
What are some of the snacks they have?
A lot of basics. They had like goldfish.
Okay.
But I kept going back they had beef jerky sticks.
Okay. And
they had these little like chocolate crackers called Hello Panda. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. Yeah. So I would walk over and I'd snatch a Hello Panda, snatch a beef jerky. I'd walk right on. Hope nobody saw me because. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that snack table sounds like every kid's dream.
Yeah.
Like all the treats you like.
And it just keeps getting refilled. Every time you go back, there's more. So.
Awesome. So you have your first 2 AEW matches, and then you kind of make your debut with DPW.
Mm-hmm.
So going from AEW, kind of a small fish in a big pond, to like DPW, where it's like this, like really special thing that like it seems like it's a coveted spot. Like some of the guys that like,
oh yeah,
we've talked to like that are like on TV or have been on TV, like they still want to go to DPW. So what's it like your first time DPW? Was it a spark?
No, it was the first live show they did.
Oh yeah, that's right. The 4-way.
Yeah. I was. I've said this and people never believe me. I was more nervous about that match than I was for doing AEW.
Really?
Because like when you go to AEW, you know what you're doing. You know what your job is. You're just there to make someone look good, and I felt very confident in my ability to do that. Going to DPW, on the other hand, you have to stand out amongst every single wrestler that's there, and there are a lot of good wrestlers there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was way more nervous about that, but ended up going super well, and I've been brought back multiple times since. So it's a blast. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Kind of a segue a little bit. I feel like you are very effective as a heel at DPW because it seems like everybody hates you. So
I know.
like,
They're actually, to be honest with you, I don't really like Deadlock fans,
yeah,
and this is none of the funny stuff. I'm so serious because DPW fans, they literally just want to watch us like get dropped on our heads, and
yeah,
they just clap for it. I'm not trying to get dropped on my head. I'm not trying to drop other people on their head. I'm just trying to have a nice match. But
yeah,
no, DPW fans, they just want to see people get hurt, and so I guess that's why they don't like me because I'm not going to let myself get hurt.
yeah. So as far as like building that heat and like reacting, like you come out to the ring and you're already like it seems like you already have somebody in mind that you're gonna mess with. Where do you kind of learn that, and at what point did you decide like this is what I'm gonna go with, or this is what I like?
Um, well, with DPW specifically, it was super easy because, like I said, they want to watch people get hurt and do a bunch of like Malachi jumping off of stuff. They like that.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna do that. So it was actually super easy to get them to dislike me. But overall, um, unfortunately, it was really just kind of just being more of myself.
yeah,
Um, and I guess people don't like that very much. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously, starting out, most promoters and companies want you to appeal to the fans. And then I guess at a certain point, they stopped wanting fans, so I stopped trying to appeal to them, which makes my job so much easier. It's so much easier to just beat people up than get smacked around all day.
yeah. So have there ever been any instances, because you could like you're having conversations with these fans, have there ever been a situation where a fan has maybe tried to get it more involved, or any kind of crazy situations that come about as a result of?
Mm-mm. They all talk tough, but at the end of the day, they laugh.
Yeah,
I said very hurtful and insulting things to some of these people, and they just go, "Oh, yeah, good job, man." So, no, nobody's ever tried to do anything.
you ever find yourself trying to one up yourself? Because I feel like for me, I would be like, I gotta find new ways to make these people hate me. I gotta find new things to say. Is that a challenge for you at all, or?
No, I mean, again, to be honest, I just, if someone says something to me, I just tell them what I think,
Yeah,
and like I said, most of them, I don't think very good things about them. So it's actually not really a challenge at all. The main challenge is really holding myself back,
yeah,
because people getting canceled out here, so I can't go too crazy.
yeah,
But so that's really the main challenge is not, saying something that's way over the line.
yeah. Yeah, I've heard wrestling characters are just yourself turned up to 11. So it seems like that might be the case with you.
To be honest, my wrestling character might just be
Yeah,
me at like a 5.
yeah,
I feel like I still got more points to go up.
yeah,
So
yeah. At the last AML show we were at, we were standing in the lobby, and you said, "Get out of my way, Marks," and just walk through us.
the sad part, I don't even think I knew that was you.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
so it's all good.
I
But
was trying to leave. I wanted my money so I could go home, and you
yeah,
were, I guess, in my way.
yeah. So definitely uh, living the gimmick, I guess you would say.
I suppose. Well, from now that I'm on the podcast, you're welcome. Um, I would like to not apologize to you because you were in my way. So you
Oh,
really shouldn't be in my
I
way when I'm trying to leave.
yeah, no apology needed. It
Yeah,
definitely,
I didn't. I know.
yeah. Okay. I take up a lot of space, a lot more than most people.
Oh, you shouldn't say that about yourself. You
It's
should
true.
let me say that about you.
Go ahead.
I don't need to.
Okay.
You already know, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, by the way.
Uh, So, kind of taking things back,
Can
you
you
have.
answer my question? I said, "Where's the other guy?"
Oh, where's the other guy?
Yeah.
His car is out of commission right now. You wanna talk shit about him?
Mm-mm.
Okay, because that would be fun for me.
Would it?
Yeah.
And I'm definitely not going to.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So you go from DPW, you have a few matches there, and then you have this fun match, which is kind of like if you read it on paper, it seems like is this really a real match? But you, Jackson Drake, Jay Malachi faced Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh. Uh, I guess
We
like
got we got to talk about that one.
we don't have to.
What's your question?
I just like the enigma of Jeff Jarrett in 2022 or 2023. You get to wrestle Jeff Jarrett. What is that
Oh
like?
yeah, no, that was fun.
Yeah,
Other parts of that match were not fun.
yeah.
We
But
don't have to talk about it.
okay. But yeah, from Malachi, he says Jeff Jarrett was super cool, and it's just his resurgence in 2023 has been kind of cool. So to have that notch on your belt is got to be cool. Even with AEW Dark, like that's something that people don't get to do anymore.
Yeah.
So like to have like not only once but 3 matches, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, the like going into that match, I wasn't thinking, "Oh, I get to wrestle Jeff Jarrett. This is so cool." Because it's just, again, when you're preparing for that, it's just got to be ready, got to do this, got to do that. So that doesn't even like cross my mind at first.
Yeah,
Um, but then it's just like, oh wow, yeah, we really did just wrestle Jeff Jarrett.
yeah,
And then like everyone's like, "Oh, you wrestled Jeff Jarrett?" And I was like, yeah, it was pretty lit.
yeah,
But yeah, I think I heard Malachi tell you guys that story. But
yeah. Confirmed here. Oliver Sawyer is a listener of the pod.
you tag me in clips like every week, so unfortunately, I do have to see some of them.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm gonna be tagging you in a few
The
more.
only full podcast I've ever listened to is my boy Manny Lowe.
Okay, so that's still a full podcast listen. I'll take it.
It was like super short. It was like 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was a short episode, but
It
it's still
was.
a full episode. Yeah. Still counts. And speaking of counting, who would you say are some of the like top 5 people that you would like to face over the next year?
Next year, so thinking like realistically,
Yeah,
um, that's a good question. I really want to wrestle Lucky Ali. Lucky Ali, everyone says it about everybody, and it's really annoying, but Lucky Ali is genuinely the one person that works in this area that
yeah,
like he could be on TV tomorrow
yeah,
and he fits right in. He is perfect. He is ready to go. Like everyone always says that, but like Lucky Ali is
yeah,
ready, right? Unfortunately, me and Lucky, I guess, are on the same side of the coin now, if that makes any sense.
yeah.
So that probably won't happen at any point soon. But I'd also like to wrestle Alexander Moss again. I've wrestled him before, but we've sort of both evolved and gotten better since then. Who else would I like to wrestle? I don't know. To be honest, I just want to wrestle my friends all the time because
Yeah.
it's fun. But I'm trying to think and give you a good answer. And I really can't. I don't know. I'd like to wrestle Billy Brash. I've done a couple of multi-mans with him in AML. I'd love to do him in a singles.
A lot taller than you would think. Billy
He
Brad.
right? Yeah. Like, why doesn't he look that tall on video?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of him, and then like the first time I saw him, I was like, "Who is this motherfucker?" Like,
Yeah, the first time I met him, I didn't even know it was him. I was supposed to wrestle him that day, and I'm like, oh, hello.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, Billy Brash definitely super talented. Then to go there, let's look at long-term goals as far as like who are some of your dream opponents to have.
I mean, all right, it's Kenny Omega. I don't think I've talked enough about how much I love that man, but I love him a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think if I wrestled Kenny Omega, I probably wouldn't keep wrestling because it never gets better than that. I don't think.
yeah. I'm guessing that's why you do the dragon suplex.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's my move. I don't.
Okay,
I've never seen him do that.
sorry.
So,
Yeah,
who else do I want to wrestle? Bryan Danielson, if he doesn't retire before I get the chance, would be great. Those are the two. I really like to wrestle Zack Sabre Jr., but I don't think it'd be as fun
Yeah.
as it is in my head because I'm not very flexible, and he,
Yeah.
he looks like he hurts. Who else? I really want to wrestle Brian Keith. Brian Keith is dope.
Yeah.
Those are the main people that I can think of right now. I mean, Seth Rollins, but yeah, those are the main ones that I can think of right now.
Awesome. Very good answers. And then kind of a question we always ask, and one of the reasons you're tagged in so many videos, who are some wrestlers out there that you think more people should know about?
To be honest, there's more people that less people should know about, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Can we hear about those?
No. No, see, I see what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And you almost had me, but I'm not going to do that. But more people should know about Grant Watts. That guy. Were you at the Firestar show, DPW show, with Leo Rush?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man, Grant, that guy, he's really good.
Yeah. That was actually my wife's first ever wrestling event.
Yeah, what was her favorite match?
I'll have to ask her, but she did say that the first match there was a lot of like slapping and it looked very painful. So
yeah,
I take that for what you will.
Yeah, no, Grant. I wrestled Grant like 5 times, and I'm not about to do that thing where I list off 5 people so you can tag them all in one clip.
Yeah,
you don't have to make different clips.
Okay.
I've wrestled Grant like 5 or 6 times, and yeah, it's like if I know I'm wrestling Grant, the night's easy. Grant's insane. He's like the prototypical just wrestler. Like if you watch him in training, it's like everything he does perfectly somehow. If he was a little taller, maybe he'd really be a prototypical wrestler. But no, Grant's really good. Outside of that, I mean, I already told you, Lucky Ali.
Yeah.
He should be not DBW world champion. He should be the world champion somewhere.
Yeah.
But no, he's holding it down at DPW for now. Who else should people know about? Who do you think more people should know about?
Yeah, Grant Watts is a big one. I think more people should know about, obviously, Oliver Sawyer. I feel like everybody always says like Jay Malachi. People already know about Jay Malachi.
No, see, we're not about to start that. Malachi, no.
Yeah, everybody does.
People know about Malachi.
Yeah, I would say like Tim. Tim has been around, done a lot of stuff. Doesn't really get a lot of credit. Movie Mike's out there, committing to the character. Drew Hood, I think, is great. Drew Hood, maybe not like your prototypical like wrestler, but he's out there like kind of changing what people are kind of. I would think at least locally, like the promos and kind of pushing people to be better. And then you could also go with Rayhan and Tejas with that as well.
Every time Drew Hood makes a post about cutting more promos, it actually makes me want to cut less promos.
Yeah.
Okay, he talks about everyone cutting promos, and I'm like, I don't want to now because you said so.
Yeah.
So I think his posts are actually ineffective.
Okay.
But yeah, Drew Hood, he's cool.
Yeah.
Big boy.
Oh yeah. There's so many people like Trey Havoc's is great. Like, you got words?
What?
You got words?
No, man. You do you, man.
Okay.
You watch the wrestlers you want to watch.
Okay. All right. So is that
don't tag nobody? Don't be doing none of this. I see exactly what you're doing. I haven't said anything bad about anybody. So.
Yeah. I think facial expressions. They say picture speaks 1,000 words. I would say a facial expression probably.
Well, I have not said anything bad about anybody that you have mentioned.
Okay. Well, I will. I think James Ryan also is a guy that. Okay. Yeah, I see what kind of wrestlers you like.
What kind of wrestlers do I like?
Not. I don't know.
Good ones.
Yeah. You kind of just said something without saying something.
I didn't say anything. I said I like good wrestlers. Don't you like good wrestlers?
Yeah, I love good wrestlers.
Not really. What's your next question?
I think that's it for me. You have any questions for me?
Oh yeah, actually, I have a couple questions for you. What's your favorite match of mine?
Favorite match? I think the one you had with Diego Hill and LeBron Kozone at DBW was really good. I've seen you. The Grant Watts was a good match as well. I think you wrestled Jackson Drake recently too. They're all pretty fun.
Yeah, I wrestled Jack the night before. We all wrestled Jarrett, Jay Lethal, and Satnam Singh.
Yeah,
That was a long couple of days.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, but yeah, Jack's cool. Do you think I look like Jackson Drake?
Uh, no, I mean you guys are different, like different builds. Like he's kind of more lankier.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're on thin ice, brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
could have said that you look like the Wish.com version of Jackson Drake, but I
Well,
didn't.
I almost left this
Yeah,
little StreamYard thing you got me in.
yeah. Well,
I
we're,
almost left. Stop. No, I don't look anything like Jack. I don't even wrestle like Jack. We don't wear similar gear. We
yeah,
don't have similar hair. We don't like.
yeah. I agree
And
with
I'm
you.
sick of people saying it.
Yeah, people
So,
are unoriginal. You got to get better with your comparisons. Who would you say you look like?
to be honest, I think I look more like David Parrish.
Okay,
Yeah, back when I had long hair, I would see a video of him doing something, and I'd be like, "When did I do that?"
okay.
And then I'd have to realize that it's not me; it was him.
So people,
But
please start comparing Oliver Sawyer to David Parrish.
why don't you just not compare me to anybody? Because I'm probably better than whoever you're comparing me to.
Yeah, you could also do that too.
Yeah. Jack threatened to kill a baby a couple weeks ago.
Did he now?
Yeah, he was in the middle of a match, decided to leave the ring, and threatened to kill a baby. So
Did the baby deserve it?
I don't know. As far as I know, the baby was just chilling.
Oh, it's problematic. So,
Yeah. Anyway.
any other questions for me?
Yeah. Hold on. I can think of some.
Okay.
Hmm. Who do you want to see me wrestle?
I think that a cool match would be you
You're
and
about to say someone really bad, but continue.
Jaden Newman,
Why do you think that'd be a good match?
because he's this very versatile, prototypical, like technical wrestler, and I think that you guys would be a good fit there.
Cool.
Do you not agree?
I'd beat him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an answer I can give?
TWE book it in Chattanooga.
Yeah, let's do it. Is there somebody that I would say that you would agree with?
Probably not.
Okay, so I feel like that was a pretty good answer. Maybe Jonathan Gresham would be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. That boy is buff.
Yeah,
Yeah, but he's
yeah. I downloaded like a creator wrestler of him in 2K.
yeah.
He made fun of me. Yeah, and he started playing, and I was like, they really like messed up the height on this. Like this doesn't look right. And then I looked at it, and it was actually correct. So
Yeah, no,
he,
Jonathan Gresham's super cool. I remember when he was starting up Terminus. I was listening to some podcast he did, and just listening to him talk about his approach to wrestling was super super interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a great mind in wrestling. I guess a question would be, who would you like to see me wrestle?
You know that doll they be wrestling in DDT?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
Okay. I think I could probably do a little bit of it. I guess you're not a big fan of the doll.
I think the doll's the doll.
Okay. Don't even want to talk bad about a doll.
I don't know.
Awesome.
People like what they like. You like wrestling dolls?
Not particularly, but I think entertainment wise, there's value that can be had. I think wrestling is different. That you can get different things from wrestling. So I love a good like technical match, but I can also enjoy like something where things are kind of going off the rails. And like I don't think you have to look at wrestling through one lens. You definitely have what you like, but
Oh, yeah, you have two lenses
yeah, I
on your
do.
face.
Yeah. Four
Right.
eyes over here. Yeah. Reach it to it. I definitely think that there's room for everything. but I definitely think.
Well, maybe not everything. Some of the people you mentioned earlier, there ain't room for them.
Okay. Well.
But there's room for some stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that there is room for an opportunity for you to come back. Hopefully, with a little bit more television exposure. Definitely want to see you out there working across the country. So hopefully the next time you come on, if you'll grace us with your presence again, we'll have a little bit more to talk about.
Not
But
with the other guy though. What's the other guy's name?
Christian.
Yeah, no. Just me and you.
Okay. I'll let
Yeah,
him
I know y'all gonna try to tag team me and make me say stuff to, I know, yeah, I know exactly what y'all do, and it's not gonna work on me. So
Okay. Well, I'll make sure he stays at home that night too. But yeah, thanks so much for
his car is probably still not gonna be working, so it's probably not an issue.
That was funny. Probably true. But I just thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. It's been fun. A little hurtful, but I've got
I didn't even say anything bad. I said you wear glasses. That's pretty much all I said about you.
Yeah, but it's the deflection. It's like I'm seeking your approval, and you're like, no.
Oh, well.
Yeah. That's probably something I should talk about in therapy.
Nothing that you don't talk about it to me because you're only going to feel worse.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much. Make sure you follow everybody is it at the Oliver Sawyer everywhere?
Essentially. PSA, I had to make a second Twitter account. Don't follow it. I forget what it is, but my Twitter got hacked, and so I made a second account. And then as soon as I made a second account, I got my first account back. And now everyone follows the second account, and I don't feel like deleting it.
Okay.
So stop following that account.
Sounds like maybe you said something and your Twitter got hacked. Is that what you're trying to say? Maybe you said something okay.
I don't know what that means.
Means that maybe you said something a little off the books. You realize
No, he got hacked by some like NFT guy. And he started promoting NFTs for like 2 weeks.
Was anybody like, wow, that's awesome, Oliver? Like, I'm so glad that you're selling NFTs now.
No, I don't think anyone cared.
Okay. Well,
to be honest. So
don't follow the second account. Follow the first one.
Follow the second account.
I'll put the right one in the description of this episode.
Yeah, it's there. Good job.
But yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. Look forward to seeing where your career goes. Definitely, everybody that we talk to has nothing but good things to say about you, wrestling wise, personality wise. There might be some other complaints, but yeah, definitely appreciate talking to you.
All right.
Have a good night.
All right. Have a good one.